Welcome to the series of videos where I'm going to provide you with solutions to various challenges on Bash and Linux shell on the website called Hackerrank. And what can you expect from this video series? I'm doing it mostly for myself. I want to document my solutions and also the whole thought process that goes behind them. And if you are also currently solving Hackerrank and you only want to see the right solution or maybe some other solution to the one that you came up with, I think you can definitely more easily find it on Google. What I hope my videos can give you is just some background and explanations of all the concepts that go behind the solution and not only the solution itself. So solution will definitely be part of those videos, but only small part. What we will be mostly focusing are all the concepts that go behind the solution, and other things maybe that we might do is some small commentary on how Bash compares to more modern programming languages. I'm expecting that most of the people that will be watching those videos already programmed in things like Python, JavaScript, maybe C++. And if you already done programming in those languages, then you have some expectations on how things should work. And those expectations won't always be met when you try to write your scripts in Bash. So Bash does some things very different to those languages. Of course, there are also differences between them, but Bash is just whole another level. So there are things that definitely are unexpected in Bash. And if you've never done programming before, I think that those particular challenges on Linux shell are pretty easy, and you can learn scripting on the go. So you can just follow me and follow those video series. And I think that after this, you will have the understanding of the basics of Bash, and you can write your own scripts and accomplish some system administration tasks with them. So maybe let us now address the issue of Bash itself. What is it? What are we going to do? So if you are on an operating system like Linux or Mac OS and you open terminal, you type some command, then what happens? This command is translated by a certain thing to operating system, and then operating system response is translated back to you by this thing as well. And it's usually called shell. There are different types of shells. The most popular shell is Bash. So this is the thing that operates in the background whenever you type stuff in the terminal. Into whatever we are going to do here, you can just open a terminal if you are on macOS or Linux machine, and even if it is the solution will involve multiple lines, you can pretty much do it directly in the terminal. The other way of doing things is simply putting those instructions into a file, and this file is then called script. Yeah, so but those things are those two approaches are not any different. So the same things that you would be putting in script, you can directly type in the terminal, and the thing that is responsible for those for executing those stuff is Bash. So maybe another thing that's important to address at the beginning is why would you even bother with Bash if there are modern solutions like JavaScript, Python, and so on. And it's definitely true that most of the things that you can do inside a scripting language, you can also do in more comprehensive, more general language like, let's say, Python. But I think that scripting in things like Bash is still really important, or it has its advantages. First of all, it's portable, so almost every Linux machine and most of the servers, if you are working on a backend, even sometimes front end, you log into servers. And the thing that's definitely there, it's Bash. And if you want to accomplish some task, you can do it. And you can sometimes you have the possibility to install things that you need for other languages, but sometimes you don't have this possibility. And another thing is that there's already so many things that are written in scripts that for some jobs you definitely need to have some understanding of it, just because there's already so many things that were written there. But I would even argue that for new things that you would write yourself, sometimes it's easier to do it in Bash than in alternatives. So the range of topics that you can do with Bash is not really big. I think there are only it's a small subset of things that you can do in programming. But the things that Bash is used for and Bash is good for, it's usually much better than the alternatives. Okay, there are probably some other ways of accomplishing it, but you will see that it has its advantages. So those are the things that we'll be doing here, like text processing, everything that has to do with pattern matching, maybe finding multiple files based on some condition and changing things inside those files, some processing of data. Maybe you have multiple configuration files, they are in different formats, and you want to convert them to a common format. Those things are really easily done in Bash, and of course you can also do it in other languages, but you will see that there are already things built into Bash that make, or built into many Linux distributions that make those things really easy. And other thing is that the things that you're using Bash for, those are just this really small subset. And for any complex thing, for any complex program, you wouldn't bother with Bash. Yeah? So there is this threshold of complexity after which you would say, okay, this is not a job for a script, and now I have to write a program. And anything that has UI, anything that's complex, you wouldn't do it in Bash. So it's only a small subset of tasks, but those tasks, there is a reason why people are doing it in Bash. So maybe let's see our challenge for today. It's simply a hello world in Bash. So they're asking us to write a Bash script that prints the string hello. We can type it pretty easily. But before we do it, I want to show you a couple of things just to understand how Bash works. So in order to print things on the screen, we use a command called echo. And then we write text that we want to print. For example, in our case, it's hello. And we don't use any parentheses or square brackets, just space and the text. But there are more ways that we can achieve the same result. For example, using double quotes and using single quotes. In this particular case, they should give the same output, but there is a big difference between all those three approaches, and it's something that you have to understand if you want to write good Bash scripts. So let's first execute this script to see that they are doing the same thing. We got 3 times hello, hello, hello. And now, what's the big difference? In order to see this difference, we need to introduce a new concept called variable. If you are coming from any other programming language, you know what variable is. And if you haven't programmed before, variable is simply a name. Behind this name, there is some value stored. And you declare variable in this way. You just type the name that you want to give to it. You can call it tuna, you can call it var, whatever you want. If the script is doing something, in our case we are just learning, it doesn't serve any purpose at all. The variable in the case of useful script, variable names should also mean something, and shouldn't be just ABC or var or something like this. But because we are just learning those constructions, we can use var, and it will remind us that this is in fact a variable. Then we write equal sign, and after the equal sign, we can put some value into it, like, let's say, a number, 3, or some text, like word. And then we can put those two things together, hello and word. Yes, and the thing that is complicating my explanation here is that the fact that we can write this text also in those 3 forms. So we can use double quotes, single quotes, and no quotes. Let us first stay in no quotes version for variable and see how those 3 approaches change inside echo. So we have variable called var, and behind this var there's data. This is a text data, and it's a word called word. Now we can use this variable in our script. After we declared it, we can just look up what's hidden behind the name, and we are doing this in Bash using $sign. So it might be strange when you've used only Python or C++, but that's how it works. We use $sign and then the name of the variable, in our case var. What does it do? The $sign tells the Bash, okay, now you don't have simple text, you have a variable name. Please look for the value of this variable, and the name of your variable is var. So the Bash, whenever it's executing the script, it will go up and see, oh, look here, the value of var is word, and it should put this value here. Okay, so let's just put this $var in this approach as well, and let us simply execute the script to see the difference between those 3 approaches. And what do we see? In the first 2 cases, it worked the way I told you it should work. We used the value that's hidden behind a variable, in our case word, and we got hello world. But in the third case, it displayed the thing that we typed. So it displayed $var. And that's the first big difference between those 3 approaches. If you use single quotes, those special characters, and there are a couple of them that you can use inside Bash, like $, we just learned about $, and variables, will be ignored. So if you have, let's say, some text that includes special characters, and you want to print this text as text, and you don't want Bash to interpret it, for example, if you use some dollars as variables, then you should use single quotes. Otherwise, if you want Bash to do its thing, you should use either no quotes or double quotes. So now, let us demonstrate maybe the difference. There are a couple more things that are going on here, but let's first maybe demonstrate the difference between no quotes and double quotes, because till now it worked the same way. Let us create another variable. Let us call it files, and we want to match files that end with txt. Star is also a special thing, and it means simply match everything. We will talk more about regex and globs in this challenges, so I don't want to go into detail here, but I think it's something that is pretty common, and people, even if they don't understand in detail how it works, they usually seen those stars somewhere. And what we wanted to do is simply to find all the files that have txt extension, and then we want to print the contents of those files, we can use another command called cut to do it. And let's do it this way, $files, and cut $files, and cut single quotes $files. And let's see if those three approaches will be different. Yes, and here we got our new stuff. So first we got the same thing that we put at the top of our script, and the new things are hello and what. So it found text files in my home directory that contain those this text, and this was in the first case. In the second case, in this case with double quotes, it tried to use it literally. It didn't interpret it correctly, like it didn't interpret this star as a symbol for much anything. It just treated it as a normal string, and it couldn't find any file that's named star.txt. There are only files inside my home directory that have txt extension, but no file is literally called star.txt. So the way with double quotes didn't work, and the way with single quotes, of course, also didn't work, because here we didn't even get the value of the variable. It just displayed it the way we typed it, and it is the thing that I already told you about those single quotes, that it will ignore any bash rules. It just displays the text that you type. Okay, so I think we have a pretty good idea of how echo works. We have some small introduction about differences between single and double quotes, and those details that maybe in other programming languages have no importance at all. You have to pay attention to them in Bash, because this is one of those things that might be unexpected. Those very small things that you change may drastically impact how your script will work. Okay, so in this case, we wanted hello to be printed with capital letters. And as we know, we can simply use it with no quotes, just echo and hello. Let us try to run this code. And it's running. I have to wait a little bit. Congratulations. We've done a perfect job of displaying hello to the terminal.